They say socialism is when the government controls the means of production. Well, right now we've got a president who is imposing vaccine mandates on private businesses across America, telling job creators and business owners that the government knows better than they do. I'd call that control of your means of production, a clear and dangerous step into socialist governance.
People thought that we might be able to stop at this big government on steroids overreach by the Biden administration. This administration is out of control. They are steamrolling over our constitutional norms, over the limitations on the executive branch.
Well, those are some Republicans in Capitol Hill criticizing the president's COVID vaccine mandate. This is a federal appeals court just put it on hold, giving the government until 5 p.m. tomorrow to respond to a challenge to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's regulation that workers at larger businesses get vaccinated by January 4th, or they have to face mask requirements and submit to weekly coronavirus tests at work. But the Biden administration says the law will eventually be upheld. The Solicitor General saying the Department of Labor, quote, is confident in its legal authority to issue the emergency temporary standard on vaccination and testing. OSHA has the authority to act quickly in an emergency where the agency finds that workers are subjected to a grave danger and a new standard is necessary to protect them. So says the government. Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, Fox's contributor, joins us now. You know, Governor, 26 states, including yours, Arkansas, have filed suit against the mandate. What's your take about this ruling that has stopped, at least for now?
Eric, forgive the cynic in me, but I wonder if it's such a grave danger, why are we waiting to January 4th? Shouldn't it have been implemented yesterday? That's the first thing. I'm reminded of that scene in A Few Good Men where Colonel Jessup, played by Jack Nicholson, when asked about a grave danger, said, is there any other kind? Well, I don't know that there is any other kind. If it's a grave danger and people's lives are on the line, then implement it immediately. So why do it after Christmas? Why is it that because we have a very intense market that we're going to get through Christmas and then we're going to impose what I do believe is unconstitutional, in part because you have bureaucrats making decisions outside of the legislative process. If we're not going to use the legislature, then let's send Congress home. Let's just quit wasting so much money on having them to meet year-round in Washington. Let the bureaucrats run the whole country. They darn near do it anyway, but they shouldn't be doing it. That's why we elect people to the Senate and House. They ought to be making these decisions, not bureaucrats.
Well, you know, the Surgeon General, you make a point, just said that he defends the mandate as, quote, necessary. So one would think, look, 750,000 of our fellow Americans have died. Coronavirus is still out there. People who are vaccinated, a tremendous number who are unvaccinated end up in the hospital and have died and are dying. At the same time, would you think there would be more of a warp speed, so to speak, to try and get something done on this?
Well, that's the whole point. But they seem to be more interested in the political science than in the medical science. Eric, I've been vaccinated. I thought it was a great idea for me, and I have no, regrets whatsoever about that. And I think most people should be vaccinated. But here's the other thing they are not taking into consideration. We've got hundreds of thousands of Americans, millions in fact, who have had COVID. Fact is, they're better protected than me, according to all the studies that have come from places like Israel, where they've done an intense study, that the people who have natural antibodies and immunity are better protected than the people who have the vaccine. But there's no allowance for that. And my question would be, why not? If the issue is to protect us from COVID, then we're going to be protected from natural antibodies. It seems like that the issue is making sure that somehow the government has control over every single American. That's troubling. I wish it would be a troubling issue for people on the left and the right, because I don't care who's running the government. They don't need to be mandating things that they truly don't understand and in which they change their own rules every other week.
Well, they also say that those, who have immunity have less immunity than if you get the vaccine at the same time. But you do point out about government control. Look, but control, you got polio. I mean, if you drive on the right side of the road, you're not allowed to drive on the left. You're going to have a head-on. I mean, there are regulations that the government puts in for health purposes to protect public health. So some would say, well, why, if you don't have a vaccine, fine, that's your right, but then wear a mask at work or agree to weekly testing.
Well, I think it's a little bit different when you say driving on the right side of the road, because then you endanger other people who are abiding by the law. If I'm vaccinated, the person who's not vaccinated really is not a big threat to me. The COVID issue is a threat to them for not getting vaccinated or not having antibodies. But I respect that people have a choice to do crazy things. I don't ride motorcycles, and if I did, I certainly would use a helmet. But there are people who like to ride motorcycles and they don't like to use a helmet, and so we allow them to do that. People get to make some choices as Americans. It's part of the liberty that we enjoy. So if we want to have the government being, our mom and dad and kind of wet nurses through our entire adult lives, we're going to live a very different kind of experience than Americans have up until now.
Finally, I mean, is it okay from your point of view that either you get vaccinated or if you're not vaccinated, that it is appropriate for government or your employer to tell you to wear a mask and submit to weekly testing?
I think that's an employer decision. One thing I disagree with some of my fellow Republicans about, I'm a free market guy, I'm a private sector guy. So if the employer makes this decision, I got no problem with that. That's an employer's right to make. Where I have a problem with it is when the government starts telling the employer to do something that is going to be very costly and cumbersome, and suddenly you have even additional cost hoisted upon that employer. And right now, people are barely making a living as it is. So I'm just wondering, when they talk about the grave danger, is there a more grave danger than someone losing a job because some pencil-neck bureaucrat in Washington decided to just go completely all out? And here's something I'd love an answer for. The other day, Rachel Walensky, head of CDC, could not even tell us how many people in her own agency had been vaccinated. So it looks like if they're going to impose rules on private sector Americans, they might want to start by imposing them on the people in government bureaucracies.
Well, I'm glad you're vaccinated. I'm vaccinated, just got my booster, and I would urge all of our viewers, if you can, to get vaccinated. This is a deadly pandemic that is not over yet. Governor Mike Huckabee from Little Rock today. Thank you, and thank you for your advice.
Thank you, Eric.